Cooking with Jay. Cooking with Jay. Welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Miss Bumphead. Today is Taco Tuesday. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Okay guys, so I already went grocery shopping. I have my taco stuff. I'm making beef tacos and shrimp tacos. Since I already made beef tacos for you guys last Tuesday, I'm going to show you guys how I make my shrimp tacos. But I'm also making the beef because my kids don't eat shrimp.
Hopefully this video does not get demonetized. If you watch this video and it looks like chunks have been removed, it is because I had to remove certain parts. But I want to talk about this new, and not even really new, but this rising niche on YouTube. A rising niche of cooking videos. I honestly thought that CookinwitKya was an anomaly. CookinwitKya does not dominate on YouTube. So that is the distinction, is that these ladies that I'm going to be showing you in this video, they are holding it down on YouTube. And this is a niche. To me, it's new, but for those of you who already know about these women and their videos, this is a way for the modern women to make money. It's interesting because the lines have been blurred between OnlyFans and YouTube. YouTube is the undercover OnlyFans, or women who should be on OnlyFans have figured out a way to monetize themselves on YouTube low key, on the low. And there's an aspect of this that spills over into what I talked about in my last video about competition amongst women. Because I said in that video that women compete via their looks, their face, their body, using their body to make money online. And what I see that's really happening is a couple things. One is survival mode. And what I mean by that is when you go back to competition, why women compete with their bodies. Another thing that women compete with is cooking and food. We know that there's no way to hurt a woman's feelings more than to tell her that you don't like her cooking or you don't like her food. But even more importantly, cooking is a way that some women reel a man in, or reel, in this case, reeling the men in. It is a gesture. It is a offering of how nurturing a woman is. Obviously, cooking is not based on gender. There are men who also cook well, but I think just historically, a woman knowing how to cook and doing it well, that signals to a man that perhaps she may be nurturing or a good homemaker, or perhaps she might make a somewhat of a decent wife, or that could potentially be a quality linked to wifehood, although those things are not connected because there's a lot of wives who just don't know how to cook or they don't like to cook. But my point is that this is, again, the cooking portion along with the body portion. This is the ultimate form of competition. And for a woman to put herself online, to turn this into a business, essentially what she's communicating is, I have the best body or the biggest butt and I can cook. And that almost brings new meaning to what Kya was saying, where she was trolling and saying, I can take your man. No, these women are really taking your man, because they are taking your man's attention. Because, when this popped up on my feed, in my algorithm, and it made sense as to why, because I cover BBL related topics, and it caught my attention. So, but it does go back to survival, in my opinion, because these women are using their bodies and their ability to cook to fund their lifestyle, to make money, to get views, which translates to money. And it is in some ways like a survival technique. And it's like a competition between who can get the most views, the most looks, the most attention. Again, all that translates to not only the men that could potentially be interested, even though that might be sexually interested, but also it translates over into the men who may want to potentially spend money on said woman. No, because on YouTube, you're not supposed to be arousing your audience. Like, that is a question before you monetize your videos. That is a question that they ask is, you have to select if the intent of your video is to arouse. If the answer is yes, then your ads will be limited or non-existent, because your video won't be able to be monetized. But if the answer is no, your intent is to educate or inform, not to arouse, then it's possible you can get your video monetized. But we all know the intention behind some of these videos that are portrayed as educational. And this is not to knock anyone who's passionate about cooking and genuinely trying to show women and show people how to cook. But I think if we all put our thinking caps on, we know that the real substance of the video is the woman's body, her shape, her moving around the kitchen, and those things, in my opinion, do have the intention of arousing the audience, and therefore probably shouldn't be monetized. But YouTube has its own system for using AI and sometimes even humans to review videos to determine if they meet the criteria. So I don't really know how sometimes some of these videos get, I don't know how much money some of these women are making, and if their videos are getting flagged. I mean, YouTube is very sensitive. Even like I've posted videos where people dancing and twerking, and those things this was early on in my YouTube career, but some of those things got demonetized because YouTube, like, too much movement. And and if you can't justify it as educational, even though I thought I tried to, but if you can't justify all that wiggling and jiggling as educational, YouTube will deem it as you're trying to arouse, and that is a problem for this platform. Now, again, Instagram, TikTok, I believe the rules are different. So you are currently looking at a woman by the name of Bianca, and the first woman, her name, I'll just call her Miss Butler. I'll call her by her last name because I'm probably will butcher her first name. So the question I have is, how sustainable is this niche, this cooking niche, where women are also, showing a lot of their skin? How sustainable is this long term? And so I went to Miss Butler's page and noticed how she went viral maybe a couple weeks ago, and since then her views have been dwindling. And this is something similar that happened with Cooking with Kya, and that's been a conversation in the media space, the social media space, about, quote unquote, Cooking with Kya's downfall, so to speak. Similar with Miss Butler, I did not see any brand deals. It is going to be difficult for her to get sponsored by certain brands, given what she is selling and how she's presenting herself. And then with Bianca, Miss Bianca, who you're looking at now, she also has gone viral, several times. Her views are pretty stable. She gets probably consistently around maybe 10K. However, she has a much bigger following. I mean, she has well over 100,000. I think she's almost at 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. But both of these women did not start off making these types of videos. Miss Butler started off doing try-on hauls, and Bianca started off doing like makeup tutorials. I think they both were doing the makeup tutorials. So it's just interesting to see how they pivoted to this type of content. And perhaps it is because, with social media, people start to lose attention. And so these women have figured out a way to garner attention. The question is, how sustainable is it? And are they monetized? And how do they stay monetized is the question. My question. I think the thing we need to accept is the variety of ways that we can make money as women by selling sex, but also trying to make it look like we're not really selling sex. And, this is a new thing with the rise of the internet, with the rise of social media. So there's so many avenues, whether you're talking about OnlyFans, whether you're talking about, places like Instagram, where the rules are a lot looser, or even if you're talking about YouTube, where you kind of got to be a little bit more discreet with it. But the industry of selling sex is everywhere. And the temptation to sell sex is so prominent because, coming from back in the day, I was born in the early 80s. And so at that time, and moving up into the 90s and really before the internet, it was like, now mind you, I was a kid, but there seemed to be a very clear distinction between selling yourself, selling your body, prostitution, strippers, like people who were in that line of sex work. Even Gabrielle Sidibe, who I featured on the channel not too long ago, who talked about she was a phone sex operator. And again, in her mind, there was a clear distinction of what she was doing and that this was for work. And again, not that I condone it, but those lines just seem to be a lot more clear, as opposed to now, because of the rise of, like I said, social media, a lot of people, the rise of the content creator, that is a thing. So there's a lot of people, in this case I'm talking about women, who are making money, myself included, making money by posting. And there is a temptation, especially if you have something unique about your body or something like that, something that is going to get a lot of attention, there is that temptation there to sell sex. And again, depending on the platform, you can do it in a covert enough way where you are almost like presenting it as though it's educational. But there are women making pretty good money. And again, I just want to highlight the allure or the temptation as a woman who has a phone or has a computer, who can post a video, and it's no longer about and we saw what happened with CookinwitKya, her rise to internet fame. And I think in many ways people have been using her as a case study to kind of see how far she goes with it. And for her, it was like, this sort of quick rise to internet and really beyond internet, because she was, in DDG's kitchen and stuff like that. But this quick rise to fame, Cardi B was talking about her, and she had some level of fame, but what some report as a quick downfall. And I can't really say that Kaya has necessarily fallen, but I think she didn't necessarily go as far as one would expect, but that was because she was doing what I'm kind of highlighting in this video, which is selling something other than the food that she makes. This is a controversial issue and a bit of a debate about, can you really make it going that route? Or will people always kind of pigeonhole you and put you in a box when you sell sex, when you know, and by that I don't mean actually the act of sex. I mean even just selling the allure, or, you know, over sexualizing yourself, bending over, twerking, putting your butt in the camera, you know, wiggling all around the kitchen, whatever you're doing. Is that a path to real success? And some people would argue that it is, because it's a path to money. You know, a lot of these women appear, based on the numbers that they get on their videos, they appear to be making a lot of money. And for a lot of people, that is success. With Cooking with Kya, she had the numbers. I'm not sure how much money. It didn't appear as though those numbers came with a lot of money. Although, you know, maybe she got some brand deals here and there. But now we don't really hear much about her. We don't really, you know, her name is not really out there. And so it doesn't mean that she won't get opportunities, but it's just a very interesting sort of case study, if you will, with regard to women, and, you know, not only what women are willing to do, you know, for money, but also what they're willing to do with the access that we now have, again, because at our fingertips, at all of our fingertips, we have our phones, we have our devices. Some men have a appetite to look at certain things. Many women are willing to give you what you want to fulfill that appetite. You know, so this is big business. No pun intended, but all of this is big business. So I'm just kind of curious what you all think about this. And did you know about this niche? Did you know about this whole cooking niche? And not just the cooking, but again, the women who wear the tight, kind of, you know, form-fitting, revealing clothing, and do that while cooking. And, you know, again, it looks like this is like a whole niche on YouTube and maybe in some other spaces. I didn't know anything about it, but just curious if you all knew about it and what you think about it.